So female reproductive system. Okay, now as we know already that for the reproduction, the male and the female both are essential. Okay, but as we know that the baby is carried by a female mother, so hence the female reproductive system will be much more detailed as compared to the male reproductive system. Okay, so like the male reproductive system, this thing is also located in the pelvic region itself. Okay, so now what are the parts or what are the organs, okay, which are involved in this female reproduction? So the first and the primary organ involved over here is the ovaries. Okay, so they are known as the primary female sex organ because their main role is to produce what? Eggs. Okay, so ovaries are the place where ovum or the eggs which are there, they are being produced. And also whenever a particular eggs are being produced, certain hormones also play a major role over there. Okay, so everyone has like the normal ovary may be small, big, okay, or normal in size. It may depend upon the individual. Okay, so usually this will be present in the lower abdomen. If you can see over here, this thing which is there, this is called as what? The ovary. So if you see here, there is a connection and these connections are called as ligaments. Okay, so these ligaments are very important, then only it will hold that particular ovaries in the position. So if these ligaments become weak, then what will happen? The ovaries or the entire reproductive system may come down also. Okay, so it's very important that the pelvic muscles must be strong. Okay, so the major role of this particular ovaries are to produce egg. Okay, so these are held by the ovarian ligaments and they are surrounded by something called as the epithelium. Okay, so this is like how the skin tissues are there. In the same way, this is also covered with what? Epithelium. Okay, plus it is having what? Ovarian stroma. So ovarian stroma means the layers which are there. Okay, whereas two layers we have, that is the peripheral layer is called as the cortex and the inner one is called as what? The medulla. Okay, so here in this ovaries, you will also find what? The small follicles will be present over here like this. Small follicles. Now in this follicles only, what is going to mature? The eggs. Okay, so whatever the immature eggs, which is also called as what? Oocytes. Okay, they are present where? In the follicles which are present in the ovaries. So what happens is whenever a menstruation cycle happens, okay, then one of this particular follicle, any one of the follicle, now this follicles may be many. Okay, 1, 2, or 3, 4, many it can be also. So depending, again, it all depends upon the individual. So during the each menstrual cycle, what happens is one of the follicle, it matures. And after maturing, what will happen? It will release the egg. And that process of release of the egg is only called as what? Ovulation. Now see, if the egg which has been released, okay, now usually we are going to study that further also about the menstruation cycle and how the reproduction actually takes place. Okay, so but for now, ovulation means what? After like from the first day of the menstruation to the 15th day, okay, whatever the days are there, after that only the ovulation takes place between 16 to 18 day of your menstrual cycle, entire menstrual cycle. So that time only, whatever the follicles are, they will burst and they will release the egg so that if the sperms are available, it can fertilize it and make a zygote or embryo to produce the babies. Okay, so we will be learning about this in detail further. So the next part, okay, next part we have is the oviducts. So if you see over here, this thing over here, this is called as the oviducts, which are commonly known as what? Fallopian tube. Okay, so these are long tubes if you see, and they are extending from the ovaries and it is coming to where? The uterus, right? So this gives a funnel shaped appearance to the entire, what you say, female reproductive system. Okay, so whatever the part of the oviducts or the fallopian tubes are there, the thing is what? It is having something which is called as infundibulum. Okay, so infant, now there are three parts. If you see over from here to here, there will be three parts in a fallopian tube. Okay, so the first part which is there is called as the infundibulum. Second is the ampulla, and the third one is called as the isthmus. So each of them plays a role in how they are going to take the egg from here, okay, carry it like this towards the uterus. Okay, this is their function actually, whatever the parts of the fallopian tube is there, that one. Apart from that, it is these things are having what? Smooth muscles as well as cilia. Cilia means small, what do you say, hair-like structures will be present over there. So now what is the use of the smooth muscles or cilia present over here in this pathway? Is typically it is for what? The movement of the egg, because the egg has to move from here to here. So for the easy movement, this hair-like structures called as cilia or smooth muscles, they contract and they move that particular egg to the uterus. Okay, so usually whatever the fertilization is there, that is going to take place over here, which is called as the ampulla. So in the ampulla region only, the sperm is going to fuse with the egg and it is going to fertilize. So which is the area in the fallopian tube which is going to, or where the fertilization takes place, is the ampulla. Okay. Then the next important part of the female reproductive system is the uterus. Now this is a very important part because here only the 9 months, whatever the baby is that has been kept. So hence it's also called as a womb. So if you see over here, it's a pear-shaped appearance. If you see over here, okay. So usually this entire uterine system is being connected by the ligaments, okay, to the pelvic walls. So I told you strong ligaments are very important for the same. So whatever the uterine walls are there, it consists of what? Now three layers will be present in the uterine walls, and whatever the first or the outer layer is there, that is going to play an important role in the menstrual cycle. Right? So what are the layers which are present in the uterine walls? External, which is called as the perimetrium, middle, which is called as the myometrium, and internal, which is called as the endometrium. Okay, so these are the three important layers which are present in the uterus. So whatever this endometrium internal layer is there, this is going to play a role in the menstruation. Okay, so here if you see, okay, these are the layers which are present over here. Now here, one small thing which you can see over here is the next part, which is called as the cervix. So it is a lower narrow part of the uterus. Now this is going to connect the whatever your uterus is there with the vagina. Okay, so usually certain kinds of glands, okay, cervical glands will be present so that it may produce the sticky mucus substances. Now this mucus consistency changes according to the menstruation, okay, because if the more mucus is present over here, then it may act as an obstacle for the sperm to pass. Okay, so depending upon the individuality, again, this criteria changes. So what happens is whenever a child is being born, that is during the delivery time, this part will, what do you say, it will dilate. Okay, means it will open and then only the baby comes out. Okay, so this is again an important part, that is the cervix and the vagina. So vagina is nothing but also called as the birth canal because through where the baby is going to come. Okay, then the last part which we have is the external genital, like how we saw in the male. In the same way over here, there is an external genital for female as well. So out of which the first one is the mons pubis. So mons pubis, we have different parts like mons pubis, labia majora, minora, hymen, and clitoris. So mons pubis, which is there, it is nothing but the external part of a female, what do you say, area, usually called as the groin area. So where it is having skin as well as the hairs. Okay, in the same way, we have the labia majora and labia this one minora. Now these are like, it appears like the lips, okay, and it acts as a vaginal opening as well. Okay, then you have the hymen. Now this hymen will be a small thing which will be present in the vaginal opening, and near to that only clitoris also will be present. So these are certain the external genital, which is very important again during the reproduction process. Then the next important part, okay, which is the mammary glands. Okay, so mammary glands, as you know, that it is located on the chest wall, that is anterior to your pectoral muscles. Okay, and it is glandular. It is glandular means what? It will be having glands, because this mammary glands after the childbirth is going to produce what? Milk, right? So it will be having certain glands as well as the lobes with the alveoli. So what does they do? They will secrete the milk. Okay, so after the what do you say, birth has been occurred. Okay, so here again many mammary ducts will be present, which have what? Mammary ampullas. So if you see over here, okay, this things, okay, this is the fatty tissues which will be present on the mammary glands. Then you have this ampullas. Now, okay, from where it will then, and in the ampulla you will be having what? Ducts, which are called as lactiferous ducts. Now these ducts are only going to secrete the milk. Okay, so this is all. See, now during the entire process, hormones play a very important role. Okay, so it's also important to know that which hormone produces, means is produced, and what role it plays. For example, in order for the milk to be produced, okay, there are two hormones which are involved. That is the prolactin and oxytocin. Now, oxytocin is also the happy hormone. Okay, so only if these two hormones are produced, then only the milk will be produced, or it will help in what? Lactation process for the baby. Right? So now we are going to see the, what do you say, the the hormones which are involved in it. So before going to the entire hormone, I think, just a second. Yeah. Before going to the entire hormonal part, we'll see the gametogenesis first. Okay. So now, because we already know about the two things, that is the male and the female reproductive parts. Okay. Now let's see how the fertilization or gametes are being formed actually. Right. So, the gametogenesis. Now, genesis means what? Formation, and gametes. So, gametogenesis means what? The formation of the gametes is called as the gametogenesis, right? So, now here, in the male, the testis, and in the female, the ovaries. Okay, they are going to produce the gametes. One is the sperm, another one is the ovum, that is the egg. Okay, so separately they will produce the same, and then they will fuse together whenever the reproduction is about to happen. So whenever a sperm has been produced, that process is called as the spermatogenesis. Whereas when an egg is produced, it's called as what? Oogenesis. Okay, so here you can see the diagram, like how actually the process happens. So you have the spermatogonia. Now these are the cells which are going to produce the sperms, the initial primary spermatocytes. It will undergo the, what do you say, the cell divisions. We have two types, mitosis and meiosis, right? So over here, first the spermatogonia cell is going to undergo the mitosis division. That is the first cell division. Afterwards, it produces what? Primary spermatocytes. Now, whatever the spermatogonias are there, they will be immature in the starting. Okay, and this will be present where? In the seminiferous tubules, which we have already learned. So, what will happen is, when the mitosis takes place, the spermatogonial cells, which are immature, they will increase in number by the process of what? Mitosis, and they will become diploid. You can see over here at the puberty that one cell is becoming multiplying. Okay, and different cells have been formed. Different cells in the sense the number is being increased, right? So now what happens is, after the mitosis, the spermatogonia is converted into primary spermatocytes. So again, this primary spermatocyte is going to undergo the first meiosis. Then the secondary spermatocytes are formed. It will undergo a second meiosis. Now, after the second meiosis, now see over here, when the first meiotic division takes place, okay, here what happened? Two haploid cells will be formed. And then it becomes what? Secondary spermatocytes. Now, when again, this particular 2 haploid cell will undergo the meiosis and it will form what? 4 cells, 4 haploid spermatids over here, if you can see. Now, these spermatids, further on differentiation, are converted to the sperms or the spermatozoa, as you can see over here, right? So, the process from where the spermatids are converted into sperms is known as the spermiogenesis or spermatogenesis, right? So whatever the sperms, once they are being produced, I told you it should be stored somewhere, and means before the release of the sperms it should be stored. So hence it will be embedded where? In the Sertoli cells. So if you see, this is the Sertoli cells. So in this only, if you see, it is embedding inside. So whatever the spermatids or spermatozoa is being formed, it will embed into that Sertoli cells. And after the spermiogenesis process, they will be released by the spermiation. Spermiation is nothing but the release of the sperms from the body, is called as the spermiation. So in order for this particular spermatogenesis to occur, I told you hormones play a very important role over here. So here the hormones which play an important role is the GnRH, which is nothing but the gonadotropin releasing hormone. So gonadotropin releasing hormone, as well as what? LH and FSH. That is luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Now only if these hormones are there, then only that spermatogenesis process which is there, it is going to, what do you say, start. Okay, and a mature sperm will be produced, right? So now, as I told you, the LH or the luteinizing hormone, this has been produced by the Leydig cells. Okay, so what happens is when the luteinizing hormone is being produced, it will release the androgens. So androgens are the male hormones. Okay, so it is going to stimulate the process of this spermatogenesis. Whereas whatever the FSH is there, that is the follicle stimulating hormone, it will act on the Sertoli cells and it will help in releasing the sperms from that Sertoli cells. Okay, so this is very important. Okay, that is LH which is there, which is already present in the Leydig cells. What it will do is it will release the androgen and it will help in stimulation of that particular spermatogenesis process. But as I told you, whatever the sperms are there, it gets embedded into that particular Sertoli cells before getting released externally. So hence, to release that particular sperms from the body, FSH plays an important role. Okay, so this is all about what? The spermatogenesis process and the hormones which are used over here in the male, what do you say, gamete production. Okay, so now as I told you, sperms are a very important part over here. So we need to know the external, how actually it looks and what are the role of each of the parts of the sperm. Okay, so let's see the first structure of the sperm. So whenever a sperm is mature, okay, and normal, it basically has 4 parts. That is the head, the neck, the middle piece, and the tail. Okay, so wherever the tail is, now it's just a basic thing. Tail will be for the movement. Okay, whatever the middle piece over here is, it is having mitochondria. As we all know, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. So for the sperms to get the energy, that particular mitochondria is present over here. Then we have the neck. Okay, now over here above the neck, you're having the head where the nucleus is present, where the genetic material of the male will be present, right? That chromosome, that XY chromosome, which is there, it will be present over here. And then you have the acrosome. Now this, in when it enters into the human body and when it reaches the egg, so the egg wall is like made up of several layers. So we have to, this sperm which is there, it has to degrade the walls of the egg. So for that purpose only acrosomes are present, which will release certain enzymes and ultimately it will going to fuse with the egg by releasing the nucleus from inside. Okay, so this is all about what? Like the basic thing about a sperm structure. So now let's see the in detail. So the first one, as I told you, whatever the sperm is there, it is enclosed in a plasma membrane. Okay, so I told you the head is having the nucleus. Now, if you take an egg or if you take the sperm, both will be having haploid nucleus. because haploid plus haploid further will become diploid. That is the reason, right? So the head will consist of a haploid nucleus as well as a cap, which is called as the acrosome. I already told you cap contains certain enzymes which will be further dealing with the fertilization process. Then you have the middle piece, that is the mitochondria, and that is going to give energy to the sperm so that it can swim inside the female body. So then the sperms will be released from the seminiferous tubules and it will be transported through the ducts, whatever we saw earlier in the male reproductive system. And there will be certain secretions as well along with the sperms when it is released into the female body, so that it will get what? A lubrication thing, right? And then whatever the mature sperm is there, it will enter and fuse. Okay, that is the thing. So now, as I told you, during this process, the LH, FSH, and GnRH hormones, they play a very important role over here, right? So if you see the LH, which are present in the Leydig cells, it actually helps not only in the spermatogenesis process, that is the formation of the sperms, but also whatever the secondary sexual characteristics in a male is there. Okay, that also is stimulated by this LH only. And as I told you, FSH, it is going to just support that particular spermatogenesis process so that it can get released from that Sertoli cells. Okay. Fine. So now let's see. Yeah, the oogenesis process. Okay, so we already know the parts of the female reproductive system and what is the role it plays. Now let's see how the eggs are being formed and what are the hormones involved in the same. So oogenesis. So oogenesis means what? The production or the process of formation of the egg or the ovum is called as the oogenesis. Now like that, as we saw in the spermatogenesis, same way over here also the representation is there. Okay, so whenever a female, okay, is in her, what do you say, um, during that embryonic growth stage, okay, what happens is whatever the lots of oogonias are formed, that is mother cells which are there, they will be formed so that it will further give rise to what? The eggs or the ovum. So here also it will undergo what? The meiosis process. Okay, so if you see over here, the oogonias which are there, that is the immature gametic mother cells you will be having. So that will increase in number by undergoing the process of mitosis. So once it increases, now here also same haploid, diploid only it's going to happen. Okay, so once the differentiation happens through the mitosis process, it will form a primary oocyte and then the secondary oocyte and lastly the ovum or the egg. So here also the primary oocyte, once it is produced, it is going to undergo what? The first meiotic division. So over here, what happens is whatever the first meiotic division is there, it will be completed before the ovulation is about to happen. That is like after the menstrual 6th or the 7th day of the menstrual cycle. Now this will be happening. That is the primary oocyte will undergo the meiotic division, first meiotic division. Then the secondary oocyte will be there. Okay, and then it will undergo the second meiotic division and form the product, which is the egg. So what happens is before a female or before a girl reaches the puberty, what happens is this primary oocytes, many will be produced. Like in short, if I want to say, when a female baby is being born, a baby girl is born, at that time only she will be having many oocytes inside her. Okay, so till she reaches the, what do you say, end of the menstrual cycle, like 45, 50, depending upon the female thing. Okay, till that time, means from the birth till that time, it will be having the eggs or the oocytes, but it will be immature. So means it will be oocytes, okay, means it will be immature. Fine, so it cannot undergo the reproduction process. That is the main part over here. So before reaching the puberty only, many primary oocytes will be there. So many will degenerate by its own. And remaining ones, how much ever is present throughout your reproductive life, okay, it will be surrounded by what? The layers of the granulosa cells. So now these are little terms which is very important. See, as I told you, during the birth, many primary oocytes will be present, but when she reaches the reproductive cycles, many of them will degenerate. So whatever oocytes have been remaining, they will be surrounded by what? The layers of the granulosa cells, right? As well as the new theca. and hence they are called as the secondary follicles, because this secondary follicles will produce secondary oocyte and then the egg, right? So the secondary follicles will be converted into tertiary follicles. Now if I here if you see, now this is the thing. Okay, so you have the primary follicle, okay, then you have the Graafian follicles, and then you have tertiary follicle. If we over here you see this small thing, okay, the ovum is getting produced and it is filled with what? The fluid. So whatever the what do you say, the secondary follicles, after they are converted into the tertiary follicles, they will be having what? Fluid in them, and that fluid cavity is called as what? Antrum. Okay, so in the oogenesis process, primary, secondary, tertiary follicles you are having. That tertiary follicles will be having a fluid filled cavity, which is called as what? Antrum. Now, at this stage, what happens is, whatever the primary oocyte which is present inside this tertiary follicle, follicle means I told you, small things which are present above the ovaries, from where the egg is going to get released, right? So, in the tertiary follicle, whatever the primary oocyte is present, it will complete its meiosis process and it will be developed into the secondary oocyte. Because as I told you, first mitosis, there is an increase in number, then the primary oocyte, then the secondary oocyte, and then the egg, right? So what happens is, before that particular tertiary follicle is releasing the egg, okay, now this particular egg is how? Secondary oocyte. So in the tertiary follicle, you're having a haploid secondary oocyte. Fine. So now whatever the tertiary follicle is there, it is going to get converted into Graafian follicle. So if you see, the size also have been increased over here. See, the tertiary follicle is there, right? So here a fluid filled cavity and the small secondary oocyte is present. Now it has been converted into a Graafian follicle and the size also has increased. Now what happens is, when the ovulation is about to occur in a female, the size of this follicle increases. Then only during the scan, that is the ultrasound and all those stuff, we can detect whether the egg is going to release, is it a perfect time for the pregnancy or not, all the stuff is there, right? So now once it is converted into Graafian follicle, next is what? Ovum. That is, now here you can see it is busting and the egg is coming out. This is only called as what? Ovulation process. So now the secondary oocyte, which is present inside the Graafian follicle, has been surrounded by a layer called as a zone pellucida. Okay, and this Graafian follicles, it will rupture and it will release the egg, and this process is only called as what? Ovulation. And further, what will happen? If you see, the sperms are coming and attacking this egg, so there will be a layer of the zona pellucida. As I told you, acrosome is present in the cap of the, means as a cap of the sperm, that is in the head part over here. So it will be having certain enzymes so that it can degrade what? The layer of the egg, and it can enter inside over here. Okay, so this is all about what? The female reproduction, how the eggs has been produced. Okay, so now as I told you, over here also the certain hormones, like as we saw the GnRH, the FSH and LH in the male, in the same way, in the female also you are having certain kinds of what? Hormones. Okay, so certain kinds of hormones means, again over here, the same GnRH, okay, FSH, LH, estrogen and progesterone. Okay, so GnRH in both male and female, if you see, they have been released by your hypothalamus, okay, of that is the pituitary gland where it is present. So that it will only stimulate the pituitary gland to release these two hormones, that is FSH and LH. So that this FSH and LH is very important if the follicle has to mature and release the egg. Then you have the estrogen. Now, estrogen hormone, what it does is, it is also produced by the ovary only. Okay, but it will help in stimulating the growth and thickening of your endometrium, because once the menstrual cycle happens or it finishes, the endometrium is being teared and it will go off. Again, a new endometrium wall has to be produced over there, right? Or formed over there. If the fertilization doesn't happen, that will be formed. So hence for that, estrogen plays a very important role. And then you have the progesterone. Now, progesterone is produced by a corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is the thing which produces placenta, okay, in the babies. So for the baby and the mother attachment, there is a cord-like thing which is called as the umbilical cord, right? So the placenta during pregnancy, whatever the production of it is there, that has been produced by this hormone, or this hormone is necessary for that. So that's why during the pregnancy, the pregnant women have been given the progesterone shots or the injections, okay, so that the baby or the pregnancy becomes smooth, right? So that is going to again help in a normal and healthy, what do you say, pregnancy, or it will support the pregnancy also, you can say, right? So this is all about what the hormones which are like included in the female reproductive system, right?